Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Bret. House Speaker Paul Ryan appears to be throwing in the towel. Ryan told lawmakers this morning he will no longer campaign with or defend Republican nominee Donald Trump following one of the most extraordinary three-day periods in recent political history. Last night, Trump tried to pull his campaign out of what many called a self-induced death spiral against a wounded Hillary Clinton, who today is dealing with the leaking of even more secret emails. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Jennifer Griffin is with the Clinton campaign as the nominee makes appearances in Michigan and Ohio. But we begin with chief political correspondent Carl Cameron traveling with the Trump team in Pennsylvania.
We'll never stop fighting for you against the Washington establishment that has betrayed each and every one of you.
Despite a stronger than anticipated debate performance, Trump has not put his Republican skeptics to rest. House Speaker Paul Ryan held a conference call with worried GOP congressmen today and said he will no longer defend Trump, and until the election, he'll focus entirely on protecting their majority. Trump lashed out on Twitter, quote, Paul Ryan should spend more time on balancing the budget, jobs, and illegal immigration, and not waste his time on fighting Republican nominee. Before last night's debate, Trump held a news conference with three women who've accused Bill Clinton of sexual misconduct. The Trump campaign paid for their travel. The fourth woman, Kathy Shelton, was raped when she was 12 years old. Her attacker was defended in court by Hillary Clinton, and he got off on a technicality. According to the Associated Press, Shelton was paid $2,500 in May by a pro-Trump super PAC run by Trump ally Roger Stone.
Hillary Clinton systematically attacked and discredited the victims of Bill Clinton's sexual harassment and assault. And instead of trying to stop it, she made it possible for him to take advantage of even more women. She put even more women in harm's way.
The debate's first question was about Trump's boasting on tape 11 years ago that as a star he often kissed and groped women without consent.
I'm very embarrassed by it. I hate it, but it's locker room talk, and it's one of those things. I will knock the hell out of ISIS. If you look at Bill Clinton, far worse, minor words, and his was action.
Did you use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes?
Of course I do. Of course I do.
Trump also admitted last night that his controversial call last year for a Muslim ban is no longer.
The Muslim ban is something that in some form has morphed into a extreme vetting from certain areas of the world.
Running mate Mike Pence, who denounced Trump's vulgar talk about women and canceled campaign events in recent days, was back on the Trump train today, hailing Trump's performance.
I'm proud to stand with Donald Trump.
Republican National Committee officials before last night's debate said depending on Trump's performance and the polls this week, they could also begin to distance themselves from Trump.
Carl, thank you. Let's turn now to the day after with Hillary Clinton and her campaign. Fox News correspondent Jennifer Griffin has that story tonight from Columbus, Ohio.
Did anybody see that debate last night? Well, you never saw anything like that before.
Hillary Clinton hit the campaign trail addressing college students in Detroit.
Donald Trump spent his time attacking when he should have been apologizing.
When the two candidates took the debate stage, neither shook the other's hand. From that moment onward, the tone was that of all-out war. Some say mutually assured destruction. Trump loomed large, standing behind her as she stepped forward to address audience members' questions.
I would go back and lean up against my stool, but he was very present.
She responded for the first time to the audio tape released Friday, about which Trump said he felt ashamed, but dismissed as mere locker room talk.
And he has said that the video doesn't represent who he is, but I think it's clear to anyone who heard it that it represents exactly who he is.
Clinton was asked by reporters about what effect, if any, Bill Clinton's accusers being present had on her.
Nothing surprises me about him, really, Dan. I was surprised by the absolute avalanche of falsehoods.
Clinton addressed the recent WikiLeaks release in which she said during a Wall Street speech that it was important to have a public and a private position when it comes to legislating, a reference she attributed to Abraham Lincoln and his efforts to push the 13th Amendment through Congress.
Now she's blaming the lie on the late, great Abraham Lincoln. That's one that I haven't. Okay, Honest Abe never lied. That's the good thing. That's the big difference between Abraham Lincoln and you.
Trump's most memorable line came when he turned the debate to her 33,000 deleted emails. She said his accusations were false.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
To which Clinton's campaign manager responded.
It's disappointing. And I would say it's chilling that Donald Trump thinks that the presidency is like some banana republic dictatorship where you can lock up your political opponents.
Jennifer Griffin with the Clinton campaign. Jennifer, thank you. And we have you covered, obviously, for Las Vegas. It will be quite something. Now to the breaking news today. WikiLeaks this morning posted more than 2,000 more emails from Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta. In there, emails the campaign won't officially authenticate, but Podesta did confirm his email was hacked and also didn't specifically deny that these emails are real. Inside, there were some interesting exchanges. Correspondent Peter Ducey is here with some of the highlights. Hi, Peter.
And Brett, we watched last night as Bill Clinton sat quietly by while Donald Trump rattled off his past indiscretions. And new emails reveal that his wife's campaign manager has an inbox full of advice about how to handle the former president. One liberal columnist wrote to John Podesta, quote, "I had a multi-email exchange with someone in the media this morning, a name you would know, who is telling me that there are people close to the Clintons who says WJC's sex life could be damaging to her." Other messages show Clinton was very mad a few months ago about how Hillary's New Hampshire campaign was being run. His chief of staff wrote to Clinton's campaign chairman, quote, "He's losing it bad today. I'm not with him. If you're in New Hampshire, please see if you can talk to him." The latest hacked emails additionally show some ripples caused by Chelsea Clinton when she called out her dad's former body man, Doug Band, over a disagreement about his consulting firm, Teneo. Band found out about it and wrote, quote, "I don't deserve this from her and deserve a tad more respect or at least a direct dialogue for me to explain these things. She's acting like a spoiled brat kid who has nothing else to do but create issues to justify what she's doing." Another note reveals how very carefully choreographed the Democratic nominee's interviews are, with a deputy comms director emailing, quote, "We also need to tell HRC she can be her natural fun self when dealing with media and stop being defensive per our earlier direction." Then there's this Podesta insult aimed at Benghazi Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy, quote, "On freshening things up, what about, I used to be obsessed with Donald Trump's hair. That was until I got to spend 11 hours staring at the top of Trey Gowdy's head." Podesta said this yesterday about his leaked correspondence.
I think we should take a step back and say how we got here, which is that the Russians, as the U.S. senior members of the U.S. government confirmed, have been hacking into Democratic accounts, and now they've hacked into my account. They've put out documents that are purported to be from my account.
And these documents appear to show that just because we don't often hear of problems behind the scenes at the Clinton campaign doesn't mean there aren't any.
And we're likely to see more of these things as we continue on. We saw the DNC hack and all that the DNC may have been doing to help Bernie Sanders behind the scenes. More of that in here as well. But so far, nothing that's incredibly explosive, that's a major shoe.
No, there's a little bit of lots of different things, but you're right. If somebody is trying to influence the election, this could be one way that they would want to do it, just spread it all out.
Yeah, we will see. We'll follow it all. Peter, thank you. Let's get a fair and balanced look now at where we are after last night's debate. Karl Rove is a Republican strategist and former senior advisor to President George W. Bush. He joins us from Chicago tonight. And Joe Trippi is a veteran Democratic strategist, worked on several presidential campaigns. He's here in Washington. Okay, gentlemen, let's look at the latest poll out. This is an NBC Wall Street Journal poll, a four-way poll. This was taken after the tape was released, the Access Hollywood tape, but before the debate. That is when this polling stopped. And it's Clinton 46, Trump 35. That is a major shift in this poll. Karl, where do you think the race stands right now?
I think this is probably pretty rich for Clinton in this poll. If you look at the Real Clear Politics average, it's just under 6 points. I think that's probably a more accurate statement of where the race is today. But it has moved to Clinton's advantage. Trump has moved up basically in the Real Clear Politics average a point or two over the last 3 or 4 weeks, but she's moved up considerably more than that and has opened up a clear lead. She was at about 2 points after the first going into the first debate, and it is now about 6 points according to the latest average.
Joe, your take.
6 points is really big. I mean, that you know, forget about the 11 points that NBC's reporting. 6 points in an average at this point in the campaign is large. And people have to remember Obama won that election in 2012 with 3.9% of the vote lead over Romney. So I'm not saying it hasn't closed after the debate. I don't really think the debate last night changed much, only because I think Trump really did well in terms of stemming the tide and I think exciting his base supporters, who I think responded, I believe, probably responded very well to his attack on the Clintons. I'm not sure he reached out and started to grow his support, so I wouldn't be surprised if it stays the same and doesn't change much.
Yeah, because now is about addition, not really the base. Let me go to one more poll item in that poll. GOP candidates for Congress. Among GOP voters, what do you think Republican candidates for Congress should do on the issue of supporting the nominee? Continue to support 67%. Again, these are GOP voters. You saw the back and forth today with Paul Ryan, what he said, and Donald Trump tweeting about that. Carl, is there a concern down ballot now about how this plays?
Oh, sure, absolutely. And if Trump really does want to be president with a Republican House and a Republican Senate to back him, he ought to lose the Twitter feed on those kind of issues and instead say, I want a Republican House and a Republican Senate to help me achieve my goal on behalf of America. Otherwise, he will materially hurt their efforts and hurt his own as a result. Republicans don't need a civil war, even if it's a minor one, between now and Election Day.
Are Democrats thinking, as you look at the balance of power, Joe, in the Senate, it's closer. They look like they're poised potentially to pick up majority in the Senate. And there you see 54-46, 44 Democrats and 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats. And then in the House, it's a much wider spread. But is there hope on the Democratic side of possibly even swinging a wave election in the House of Representatives?
I think that's wishful thinking. I think there's a lot of hope that could happen, and certainly some pieces are falling into place that might make it, you know, a vague possibility.
Hillary Clinton, by the way, campaigned for a race today they didn't think she was going to campaign with, and it's a close race, a House race.
Oh, no, I think, well, 2 things. One, I think the Senate is definitely in play, and I think the margin that Hillary has right now is likely to pull in a Senate majority. I think the House is a much different case. I mean, there's just so many seats that the Republicans have. Democrats will certainly believe that they're going to do better than we could have expected. But I don't think I think thinking about a majority yet still isn't there. On the other hand, what Ryan did today really is going to cause problems out there, because if you withdraw your support or don't campaign with Trump, and your turnout, Republican turnout, depresses at all because of that, as the establishment pulls away from him, then and Trump supporters get angry at Ryan and the establishment Republicans, you have a civil war, the one that Carl referred to that you want to avoid right now. You can't have one of those. If that starts to break out, people stay home or get mad. Then you've got a situation where, yes, Democrats could get the majority in both.
Let me go quickly to the electoral map and the picture that is painting right now. It's still an uphill battle for Donald Trump to get to 270. Both of you quickly pick a state that you think is very important and why. First to you, Carl. What's your state?
Pennsylvania, where he went
Pennsylvania,
today.
let me put the poll up here. The RCP average of polls, Clinton 47, Trump 39.
Yeah. Look, if this was a state where he was within a point after the Republican convention, he closed it again in late September. It's now widened out since the first debate, and this is a state he needs. Even if he takes all of the Romney states, and Ohio, and Florida, and Iowa, and Nevada, where he's been polling well, that still only gets him to 265, and he needs something that the Democrats have consistently won, and this looked like his best opportunity. He probably thinks that's why so as well. That's why I went there today.
Okay. What's your state, Joe?
North Carolina.
Okay. North Carolina, the RCP is 44 for Clinton, 42.2 for Trump.
Yeah, I think this is the place I've said before where Trump has to carry North Carolina, and I think when you look at Obama won it by 0.5 point in 2012. She's running far better than that. Some recent polls have her running up 6. I know the average doesn't have her that much, but I actually think that this could be the state that decides her, and the Senate seat there could go with her. If she
Richard Burr is trying to hold on to his seat there. Joe and Carl, thank you as always. Well, what's one word you would use to describe or characterize where the presidential race is right now? Let me know on Twitter at Bret Baier. Use the hashtag Special Report, or on Facebook, facebook.com/BretBaierSR. We will use some of these responses at the end of tonight's program. The United Nations is making an emergency appeal for nearly $120 million in aid for Haiti following last week's devastation from Hurricane Matthew. It's believed more than 370 people died there. Here in the U.S., the death toll has risen to at least 23, and the devastation, while significant, did not fulfill catastrophic predictions. Correspondent Steve Harrigan is in hard-hit North Carolina tonight. Just moments ago, President Obama declared a state of emergency for that state.
Looks like you got some kids. Everybody all right?
Yeah. All right, sir, all right. Despite the sunny skies for people here in central North Carolina, it is worse today than it was yesterday. Here's what one neighborhood looks like.
This is Wellington Road in Lumberton, North Carolina, not far from Fayetteville. What happened in the early morning hours here is that because of the intense rain level, 16 inches in some places, a levee broke in the early morning hours. People who thought they were safe are not safe anymore. We've seen a number of relatives, neighbors, church people coming here with their boats to try and get these people out.
Hop in, bud.
This couple is canoeing back to their house to get medication and search for their dog. Others are trying to save neighbors who are trapped.
Who are you going to get now?
We just noticed some people that needs to be rescued, people from the church, and anyway, they're needing some help. We're going to go back here and get them.
Just doing it all on your own?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Already in North Carolina alone, this storm has killed 10 people. Most of them in their cars. They've been driving in water, opening the doors, and then the car submerges. There have been more than 1,000 rescues carried out here as well. Urban rescue teams from all across the country coming here to central North Carolina to save who they can. Yesterday it was people trapped in their vehicles. Today it's been rescues from the roofs of houses. Part of the reason so many people are fending for themselves is because of the roads. They're either completely washed out or partially underwater. That makes it hard for help to arrive. Bret?
Steve Harrigan live in Lumberton, North Carolina. Steve, thank you. More bad news for Samsung tonight. Breaking right now, that company has just announced it is halting sales of its Galaxy Note 7 smartphone. This follows reports that newly released versions of the fire-plagued originals are also overheating or catching fire. Samsung will ask all global partners to stop sales and exchanges of the phones. Investigators are looking into a report that smoke from a phone forced a Southwest Airlines flight in Kentucky to evacuate passengers last week. Stocks were up. The Dow gained 89. The S&P 500 finished ahead 10. The Nasdaq jumped 36. There are concerns tonight about whether the newest museum here in Washington may be playing politics instead of playing it straight. Chief legal correspondent Shannon Bream looks at why the National Museum of African American History seems to be ignoring one particular historic African American.
He should be celebrated. His life should be celebrated. It certainly should be celebrated at this museum.
But the brand new National Museum of African American History and Culture makes virtually no reference to Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, the second African American to sit on the nation's highest bench. That stands in contrast to displays for Justice Thurgood Marshall, which include pictures, history about his life, and quotes from some of his opinions. Mark Paoletta, a former White House attorney who helped to shepherd Thomas through the confirmation process, says it's fitting to honor Marshall. But not doing the same for Thomas is, in his words, a deliberate snub.
Clarence Thomas has his own views. That's his sin. He believes in individual rights, not group rights. That's led him to oppose racial preferences, and for that, he's banished. And in clear dictatorial thought sort of police. He's disappeared like the communists used to do back in the Soviet Union.
Anita Hill, who accused Thomas of sexual harassment, is featured in the museum. In fact, that's the context in which Thomas is mentioned. Quote, in 1991, Anita Hill charged Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas with sexual harassment.
Museum officials have not responded to questions about why Thomas is virtually absent from this new museum. But just days ago, in an interview with our own Bret Baier, Rex Ellis, the man responsible for planning and overseeing the collections, said this about the museum's mission.
The Smithsonian has had a reputation for years of being a convener, of bringing disparate groups and opinions and ideas together to talk about and to grapple with in ways that are beneficial.
Even Chicago Tribune columnist Darlene Glanton, who says Thomas has, quote, spent the last 25 years on the court protecting barriers and putting up new ones designed to stifle blacks and other minorities, adds, like it or not, Thomas is an historical icon. He deserves a prominent spot in the new museum. In Washington, Shannon Bream, Fox News.
Now back to presidential politics and the fallout from last night's debate. Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry is here to see if some of the statements presented as fact really hold up today.
After Donald Trump declared he would put Hillary Clinton in jail for wiping out over 30,000 emails, he put a finer point on the deletion timeline.
You should be ashamed of yourself, what you did. And this is after getting a subpoena from the United States Congress.
We have to move on.
Look, it's just not true.
Actually, it was Clinton not telling the truth. After the New York Times revealed on March 2nd, 2015 that she had a private server, the following day, Republican Trey Gowdy issued a subpoena for Clinton to preserve all documents related to her various email accounts. Yet within weeks, BleachBit was used to delete thousands of emails, according to an FBI summary of its investigation, though there's no proof that Clinton herself knew the emails were deleted after the subpoena was issued. Trump, meanwhile, did not tell the truth when pressed on his temperament in the dispute over Miss Universe contestant Alicia Machado.
You sent out a series of tweets from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., including one that told people to check out a sex tape. Is that the discipline of good?
No, it wasn't check out a sex tape.
Yes, in fact, Trump's September 30th tweet said, quote, did crooked Hillary help disgusting check out sex tape and past Alicia M. become a U.S. citizen so she could use her in the debate? Both candidates stumbled on Syria.
Oh, she was there as Secretary of State with the so-called line in the sand, which...
No, I wasn't. I was gone.
Clinton wrong again. She was Secretary of State on August 20th, 2012, when President Obama infamously said,
a red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around.
Trump appeared to throw his running mate, Mike Pence, under the bus by saying the Indiana governor was not on the same page when he declared in the VP debate the U.S. should take military action against Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad.
He and I haven't spoken, and I disagree. I disagree.
You disagree with your running mate?
I think we have to knock out ISIS. Right now, Syria is fighting ISIS.
That last point only partially true. While Assad has sometimes fought ISIS, he's mostly focused on taking out Syrian opposition groups. Pence today argued he was taken out of context, though in both debates the question was framed around a humanitarian crisis in Aleppo. So this may just be crossed wires within the ticket. Bret?
Ed, thank you. As usual, there's a big focus today on the moderators of last night's debate. Fox News media analyst and host of Fox's Media Buzz, Howard Kurtz, is here to tell us how they did. Good evening, Howie. Donald Trump kept on criticizing moderators last night. Martha Raddatz from ABC, Anderson Cooper from CNN, saying the debate felt one-sided, like 1 against 3. Did he have a point?
He had a point. Overall, Cooper and Raddatz did a good job, but there's no question that they were tougher on Trump. They asked him a combined 5 questions about that Access Hollywood tape on groping women and 3 questions about whether he paid federal income taxes. But Hillary Clinton got only a single question on such issues as her email scandal. And on that WikiLeaks dump about her big money speeches to Wall Street firms, Raddatz asked only an online question from a voter about whether Clinton had been two-faced in talking about public and private positions, but nothing about the controversial content. For example, Clinton's line in one speech saying that she favors open borders.
Howie, there were pointed questions, obviously, to Secretary Clinton, perhaps more than before. But Trump also argued that the moderators interrupted him far more than they did Hillary Clinton. And then there was this exchange.
Why do they have to say we're going to be attacking Mosul within the next 4 to 6 weeks, which is what they're saying? How stupid is our country?
There are sometimes reasons the military does that. Psychological
I can't
warfare.
think of any. I can't think of any.
It might be to help get civilians out.
What do you make of that?
It was really striking how Martha Raddatz at that moment stepped out of her moderator's role and was debating Middle East policy with Donald Trump herself. No comparable moment of debating Clinton. As for the moderators interrupting Trump more, well, in part, they were trying to enforce the rules because Trump interrupted Clinton frequently during her time to speak.
And quickly, what else stood out?
Well, you know, that bizarre, dimly lit news conference that Trump held beforehand with Kathleen Willey and Paula Jones and Juanita Broaddrick, the Bill Clinton accusers, and bringing Broaddrick to the debate. Some Republicans didn't want him to go there, Bret, and we've never seen anything remotely like it.
It was pretty surreal, actually. Howie,
good word.
Thank you. Was it the Great Escape? Failed Hail Mary? Restart? Great moment? We'll talk about Donald Trump's efforts to save his campaign and whether they're working across the country. The panel joins me after a break.
The last 72 hours has framed what this election is all about. It's about the American people fighting back against corrupt politicians who don't care about anything except staying in power and keeping their donors happy. I will never stop fighting for you against the Washington establishment that has betrayed each and every one of you, betrayed the country. How many have watched the debate last night? How many of you?
What's exciting to me is that we're getting more and more support, not just from Democrats, but from independents and Republicans.
Exciting. Debate fallout, the aftermath of both sides, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, on the campaign trail. This as House Speaker Paul Ryan came out and told his House colleagues he would not defend or campaign with the party's presidential nominee. While Mr. Ryan, the Wall Street Journal reports, didn't rescind his endorsement of Mr. Trump, he drew immediate outrage from the nominee and his supporters. Mr. Ryan told House Republicans Monday on a conference call that they should make their own decision about whether to maintain their support for Mr. Trump. And what Ryan is referencing there is a tweet from Donald Trump midday after all this came out. Paul Ryan should spend more time on balancing the budget, jobs, and illegal immigration and not waste his time on fighting the Republican nominee. Now, just moments ago, the RNC came out. Over the last 24 to 48 hours, there have been a lot of false rumors that we, the RNC, didn't want to engage in. Reince Priebus told 168 members of the RNC, many of whom have also stood by Trump, according to a person on the call. Nothing has changed in terms of our support for the nominee. Priebus told them that Trump had issued a heartfelt apology and that I think the issue, quote, was taken care of at the debate. With that, let's bring in our panel. Charles Hurt, political columnist for The Washington Times. Ann Guerin, political correspondent for The Washington Post, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charlie.
I think that Republicans certainly hope that that issue is taken care of in the debate. And who knows? You know, the last poll that we saw from NBC shows Hillary Clinton taking a sizable lead, but that was completed before this vile tape was released.
No, it actually was after the tape, but before the debate. So there was some polling that was after the
tail end of it, but I think that but we have not seen a poll conducted completely after the release of the tape, so we don't know whether that was as big a bombshell among voters as it clearly is among the media and the Republican establishment, but the Donald Trump that showed up at the debate last night, I think, was a Donald Trump that could have won the election. It remains to be seen just how much damage was done by this tape. But if he had bottomed, if he had bottomed out, that candidate that we saw last night has the best shot at digging himself out of that hole and winning.
What about this back and forth with Paul Ryan today and what that means potentially?
Well, it's getting a little hard to follow all the factions and sub-factions here, but basically there's a civil war in the making. And I mean, Paul Ryan is giving amnesty to Republicans, elected Republicans, up and down the ballot, to do what they see fit.
That's a no harm, no foul amnesty he's offering, which many Republicans are going to take. I mean, you've got 36 and counting Republicans saying that they're either rescinding support or denouncing Trump. Certainly not all of those are endorsing Hillary Clinton, but she'll take any she can get, and that leaves Trump fighting not only with Ryan, but sometimes also with Priebus, and Priebus may be fighting with Ryan, and I don't know, anyway.
But it is this environment, we've talked about it many times, Charles, of this anti-establishment, anti-elitist, it's not working, kick the table over, try something different. Can he cobble together enough of that reaction with only one more debate to go to change the dynamic in this race?
That's not clear. What is clear is that he prevented the crash last night. He was headed, well, to mixed metaphors, over the edge because the party was deserting him. All those defections, the governors, the senators, and members of Congress. Remember, when Nixon resigned, it was not right after the Supreme Court had ordered him to release the tapes. It was when Barry Goldwater and the delegation from the Congress went to Nixon and said, it's over, you got to resign. And the next day he announced his resignation. The loss of, this was a flight to the exits. And it's clear that the debate steadied him in the sense that appears to have been stemmed. It looked as if he had stopped the bleeding. Now, he's lost a lot of time. He's behind. If you lose, he had to use this. It's like using a timeout in NFL. He used a debate that he could have used to close the gap, to simply hold the campaign together, which he did. What's surprising is having staunched the bleeding, that's the third metaphor.
Keep going, you're on a roll.
Ryan comes out and he rips off the bandage by giving, look, I'm on a roll here, you're right. He gives permission for others to resume the flight, the exit. And that creates, I think you're absolutely right, Ann. This is the Civil War. This is the split that we're going to see between now and Election Day. And I think it makes it almost impossible to win if you're a Republican running for president, because either people are going to be angry on the so-called establishment side or on the Trump side. And either way, if you're a senator or a congressman, you're caught in the middle. You could lose a substantial amount of Republican support.
Think of the delicate balance that people like Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania have been trying to work, tapping into the Trump support, but yet also kind of making sure the establishment Republicans come out. If you somehow dampen one side of that equation, Charlie, and you're in a 2-point race, they could have control of the Senate easily.
Oh, sure. No, there's definitely a lot at stake here. But I do think that somebody like Pat Toomey has done a very, very good job of keeping that balance.
Or Richard Burr in North Carolina.
That's tougher.
Haley Ayotte in New Hampshire.
But I think that having these sort of course, as a reporter, I like having the disputes among the party. I think that it keeps everybody more honest. I think that I like that there's real open disagreements between Paul Ryan and Donald Trump. And I'm not all that certain that Paul Ryan was doing all that much to help him anyway. But in terms of the debates, when you look at how bad, and I didn't think he did that badly in the first debate, but when you look how badly the media declared that he did in the first debate, and they've been at him for 2 weeks over that, or a week and a half over that, which is why I think we saw his poll numbers drop. But you look at how badly he did in the first debate and how he did last night. We still have another debate, and it's going to be a great debate. And if he gets that much better again, it could be a different, we could be singing a different tune.
And speaking of that disconnect, so there was this moment where he goes after the emails and an exchange with Hillary Clinton on that stage that really got a lot of reaction today. It was about essentially going after Hillary Clinton if he's president.
For you to say that there was nothing wrong with you deleting 39,000 emails, again, you should be ashamed of yourself.
We want to give the audience a chance
you'd be put in jail, let alone after getting a subpoena from the United States Congress.
Clinton,
It's chilling that Donald Trump thinks that the presidency is like some banana republic dictatorship where you can lock up your political opponents.
And I saw all kinds of Clinton people out saying this is a banana republic, it's a dictator. They jumped on this.
Well, sure. I mean, but Donald Trump wasn't talking to them or anyone or anyone like them last night. I mean, that was pure red meat for his core supporters who have been who get excited every time he goes right at the heart of what they see as Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, but even Frank Luntz and his group of independents who hadn't decided, undecideds, said that was the moment that they dialed up the highest, Charles.
Look, I'm sure it appeals. I'm one of those who thinks that there was a miscarriage of justice in not indicting her. But the problem here is the pattern from Trump. He has spoken about using the powers of the government to go after other opponents, like the publisher of the Washington Post. He's talked about that. He warned the Ricketts family, who had supported one of his opponents, that they might have a business that would be investigated. Do we want to invest in him all the powers of the government if he acts in a way where he seems to want to carry out vendettas? And that, I think, only reinforced that. In her case, there was a miscarriage of justice, I think. So that's perhaps in a different category. But it makes you wonder about his authoritarian impulses. And that's what I think is the issue.
Next up, WikiLeaks' latest. The leaked Hillary Clinton emails keep coming. What is inside?
Hillary had no defense for her secret speeches to Wall Street and international banks that she hid from the public and which were exposed by WikiLeaks.
We have never in the history of our country been in a situation where an adversary, a foreign power, is working so hard to influence the outcome of the election. And believe me, they're not doing it to get me elected. They're doing it to try to influence the election for Donald Trump.
But I notice anytime anything wrong happens, I like to say the Russians, she doesn't know if it's the Russians doing the hacking. Maybe there is no hacking, but they always blame Russia. And the reason they blame Russia is because they think they're trying to tarnish me with Russia.
Well, talking about the WikiLeaks situation there and the fallout from these emails that keep coming out. We received 2,000 more this morning. Of them, here's about releasing the Wall Street transcripts. Lanny Davis writing to John Podesta, hope there is no debate about full and immediate release. Whatever nice words she said, not releasing or delay, and then my opinion for what it's worth, release later as is inevitable is worse. They didn't release those transcripts, and now those transcripts are online. John Podesta also in a communication online talking back and forth about how essentially dishonest Hillary Clinton is because she says things that are untrue, which candidly she does often. We're back with the panel. Charles, what's the fallout of all this?
Well, that's pretty damaging. And in any other environment, it would be the front page story. Her own campaign manager says she has a way of telling untruths. Of course, he's 20 years late. William Safire wrote a column on that. 20 years ago, when she was First Lady, he called her a congenital liar. And there's a great columnist he was. He got another column out of it on the use of the word congenital. But that's neither here nor there. I think this stuff is very damaging. But in the context of the firestorm after the release of the tape involving Trump, it has gotten smothered. It's up to the candidates to raise it again. You could say it's a media conspiracy to smother it. But nonetheless, I think it was Karl Rove who said, sex beats money, or whatever is the subject.
And are they worried about this in the Clinton campaign? This is stuff that, about her being untruthful. This is about Chelsea being a spoiled brat. Bill Clinton's sex life is a problem. A campaign memo to the DNC saying that they should build up Donald Trump and Ted Cruz before the primary.
Right. I mean, this is a lot of dirty laundry being aired at a very inconvenient time for her. Of course, they're concerned about it. They're concerned about a number of other things that are related to it. They don't know what WikiLeaks has, what more that organization has. They don't know for sure exactly how that material was collected. They don't know when it will be released. And so there's a certain, you start to get into a state actor problem here, as she was alluding to in the debate debate last night, and should she win, she's going to start her presidency with a giant fight with Russia as a very early problem. They're concerned about that.
It's a legitimate pushback, and that's what Donna Brazile did with me yesterday. But you could be having some substance here, where she's saying something to Wall Street banks that obviously she's not saying publicly, Charlie, and there could be other shoes to drop.
Oh, yeah, and I think both campaigns are very concerned about what shoes are out there. I mean, they talk about a wild election where there's no way to predict what is going to be the front page headline in 3 days. I think both campaigns are worried about what could come out next. But, and while there's no great, huge smoking gun here, the whole, all of this business about Chelsea being a brat and just the psychodrama that goes on, it's a reminder that of the 90s, quite frankly. And if Hillary gets elected, then you can't say we weren't reminded of the 90s before the election.
How you describe to us the presidential campaign, your tweets and posts when we come back. Finally tonight, earlier in the program, we asked you for a one-word description of where we are right now in the presidential campaign following this incredible weekend of scandal and controversy. Here's what you said on Twitter: Olin Brown, vile; Lee Marks, disgusting; Char's blue eyes, nauseating; Steve Ashman, hopeless; Susan Ferguson, comeback; Clay B. Miller, deplorable; KG Kopp, shameful; Amy NTPC, embarrassing; Roy Ortland, degrading; Laura Drasner, shocking; FloJo 1866, pathetic, from our friends at Facebook.